speaking on the issues that impact. This is the Patrick Henningsen Show on TNT Radio.
Welcome back. We're in the final segment of the final hour of this live broadcast. Thank you very much to Medea Benjamin for dropping in for an update on her interventions on Capitol Hill. Great disruption with Lloyd Austin at the Senate hearing today or yesterday on Capitol Hill with her group Code Pink. They're doing some great work, as are many activists around the country. People have just stepped up all over the country on this issue. It's very inspirational. Let's hope we can get a change in policy, though. That's what everybody wants. That's what everybody needs. Now, let's look at the U.S. political scene, and it's kind of tangentially related to this issue of Israel and Gaza. In the political scene, there's been sort of an uproar in the so-called alternative media. I like to call it the mainstream alternative media, with the Daily Wire of Ben Shapiro fame, Candace Owens, summarily ejected from the organization. Why? Because she's apparently compassionate towards the plight of the Palestinian people. Who knew that would be labeled as anti-Semitic? But I think that accusation is losing its sting a little bit. It's been overused. And one of the people who's been kind of highlighting some of the hypocrisy, not just on this issue, but right across the board, is Niko House, Hotspot Media. If you're following him on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, that's where you want to be. His videos are popping off and going viral left, right, and center. Niko's joining us on the line right now. Niko, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, Pat. Thanks for having me back on.
Appreciate it. And a lot of us are very entertained by your video offerings of late, very much on point. And I wanted to talk about it. I mean, it's kind of interesting how this, as tragic as this is, it shattered a lot of, I think, constructs and propaganda and facades, political facades. They've just cracked, and they've just completely disintegrated right in front of our eyes. One of those is this political character, Ben Shapiro, and this media outlet called the Daily Wire that just burst onto the scene and like supposedly conservative, supposedly this or that. But as you pointed out in your video, Niko, it doesn't seem like it is what it says on the tin. What are your thoughts on this whole Candace Owens Shapiro controversy?
And that seems to be the case usually when it comes to the quote unquote, these big media conglomerates that just burst onto the scene, that claim to be independent. Because in my opinion, the Daily Wire is really no different than TYT for the left, right? They claim to represent one side of an ideology, but in actuality, they actually they seem to be almost mimicking the side that they supposedly have all this disdain for. Like I said in the video, and thank you very much for the kind words about the hotspot stuff. I love doing those videos. You know, it's fun for me, and it's also a challenge just having to do it every day and come up with something new to talk about. But there's plenty to discuss when Ben Shapiro is out here firing people. It's funny because he claimed to be pro free speech, right? Ben Shapiro specifically claimed to be pro free speech in a video where he actually was faulting The Guardian for firing somebody for being anti-Israel. Right. And then he himself said, I would never fire or support the firing of anybody for being anti-Israel, no matter how much I disagree with that point. Then he literally turns around and does it, and then goes on this tour where he's telling everybody, I don't want to talk about Candace, but let's talk about Candace, and trying to make excuses as to why he believes it's different. Right. Where he says, you know, we're not a platform. We're a publisher. It's different. We can be sued. So legally, like, bro, we're not talking about legally. We know what the difference is legally. We're talking about morally. We're wondering about this because, you know, I consider him a SJW just for the right. And it's like, you made so much money pretending to hate this very thing that you're doing to Candace. And you expose yourself. And I personally believe, I can't say for sure because nobody really knows their numbers, but I personally believe that when they fired Candace, they took a hit, like a huge hit. Otherwise, Ben Shapiro wouldn't be going on his media tour trying to make an excuse for firing Candace while simultaneously pretending like he's done with the issue.
There's an old saying, Niko, in the Midwest, it's all hat and no cowboy. And this is sort of this is Ben Shapiro is like waxes on about his principles, but when it comes to the crunch, I don't see him, keeping any of these principles
Hey,
to
look,
heart.
it's all yarmulke, no chutzpah.
No, so he doesn't really have any principles on free speech. Like you said, his rise to fame was kind of burying college undergraduate students in debates, and high school students and things like that. He'd sort of rail on them about identity politics and being social justice warriors, but he practices the most extreme form of identity politics when it comes to Zionism. And to the point where he's willing to defend a genocide that's happening right in front of our eyes, to defend his brand of identity politics, which is
not
extreme
just defend it,
identity
Pat.
politics.
Not just defend it, justify it. Not just defend it. Yeah, it's just literally Ben Shapiro said on camera that his approval of U.S. foreign policy is strictly dependent on their policies towards Israel. So you're more loyal to another country than your own? Now, if a leftist said something like this in regards to, let's just say, Iran, for example, how do you think Ben Shapiro will react? Like, it's crazy to me how this man, and also it's weird how nobody saw it in the past. I don't really understand why people think he's a good debater. I don't understand why people like watching him. I don't understand. I think that maybe his audience actually kind of is geared towards boomers who like to see a youthful face, agree with them all the time. But like the reality is, so if I put the war in Afghanistan, Ben Shapiro supported, so did Hillary Clinton. Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, rather. Hillary Clinton supports Ukraine, Ben Shapiro supports Ukraine, and wants to send more aid there. He's actually lambasting Congress right now for not getting the aid path for Ukraine. Okay, here's where it gets even better. Hillary Clinton hates Trump. Ben Shapiro hates Trump. Okay, Hillary Clinton is a shill for Zionism in Israel. So is Ben Shapiro. He wants to go to war with Iran. So does Hillary Clinton. Okay, so somebody want to explain to me what the difference is between Hillary Clinton and Ben Shapiro, other than the fact that now Hillary Clinton acts like she's like pro-LGBTQ. Like that's literally the only difference. That's it. And even then, like it's not really a significant impact on issues that matter that Hillary Clinton, if she was president, for example, could actually have influence on. Like, no, they agree on all the same things. So what's the difference? And why does he keep getting to paint himself as somebody different?
So what you're illustrating here is that you might have somebody LARPing, live action role player, LARPing as a conservative when in fact they're a neoliberal. Exactly. And in fact, probably a Trotskyite. Let's just put all our cards on the table. Yeah. I mean, that's what it seems like. And why I see this quite often, Niko, is that especially when people are young, the competition to rise up the ranks of the left wing of politics is much more difficult and intense through the college years. It's just a more crowded space. And then someone like Ben Shapiro can look at the conservative side and almost looks like an open field if you're willing to farm a couple of issues. And this anti-woke thing, the SJW thing, it was kind of an open field, and there wasn't that many people playing in it who captured the social media power, and he did.
And specifically, there wasn't a lot of Jews playing it. People forget traditionally the Jews that we see in media have always been liberal.
Totally.
The ones that rise to fame.
Yeah, left-wing anti-war, left-wing progressive anti-apartheid. I mean, the great Andrew Feinstein, who's doing great work right now from South Africa, who is a scholar in genocide. He is emblematic of your average liberal Jewish activist that basically were anti-apartheid and pro-ANC. But this is all flipped now.
Yes, it's flipped. Oh yeah. Significantly so. Or we could say it flipped, but like the reality is like a lot of these quote unquote conservatives, self-proclaimed conservatives are liberals from the 90s, right? There's not really any difference between a conservative, quote unquote conservative now and a liberal from the 90s. But I will say also, what we're also seeing is that like the conservatives who actually believed in this ideology that they were preaching and believed that their cohorts shared the same principles, they're figuring out, oh, y'all are full of shit. Y'all never actually, like Candace is figuring it out. My friend Lauren Chin, who's a conservative, she spent a good amount of her time calling out conservatives over this issue about Palestine. And she even took it a step further, where she said, all this time, y'all have sworn that when y'all talk about radical Islamists, extremists, that you aren't specifically referring to Muslims. But looking at how you are trying to lump every single Palestinian into the radical extremist category makes me reconsider like that you all actually were referring to Muslims and it was just a thinly veiled dog whistle. And like, so you have these type of major personalities that are coming out to the that are not necessarily extremely pro-Palestine like you or I, but they're definitely anti-Zionist and they want peace. And now Trump is like, hey, Netanyahu, it ain't looking good, dog. You need to figure it out. And we talked about this, Pat. We talked about it. We talked about this on your show and mine, where we said what makes Trump a little bit more predictable in his unpredictability, his ego. And he ain't gonna go down with anybody's ship but his own.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And at least that you can figure out with a politician. And that's probably because he's more of a populist. In other words, he's slightly more accountable to his base. I'm not saying that he totally is, but he's slightly more accountable than on the current Democratic establishment right now. But yeah, that's a good observation. Listen, these are the important things. These are the mechanisms that drive issues and control the political fault lines. I mean, so it's important to identify these things, Niko, whether it's on the left or the right, it doesn't matter because this is how things work.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of Trump's close like associates in media, like that I know personally, they're very much so anti-Zionist and anti-Israel and specifically anti-Netanyahu. And even though some of them come out a little bit more publicly, others have been quiet, but I know how they feel behind closed doors. Like Trump needs them and he knows it. And even though a lot of them are supportive, as you see one by one, them lining up behind Candace, which almost was kind of unexpected. I'm actually kind of impressed about the solidarity that's been shown with the conservative community to the point where they're willing to go to war with each other in order to protect Candace. I think the conservative community needs that in the same way that the left has needed that in the past so that we can, trim the fat. I'm not trying to call Cenk fat, but anyway,
it didn't come across that way, Niko. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking that until you said it. So now, like, I can't get that meatball image out of my head. Sorry, did I say that? I didn't mean to say that. This is all going pear-shaped. Sorry, we're gonna rewind the segment. We can don't worry, we can edit that.
They need it.
A Young Turks bashing session. But as we're here, I might as well go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they bash themselves, but at the end of the day, like, we needed that. People always say, why do you have infight? No, it's not infight. It's trimming the fat. It's figuring out who is actually for this ideology that they claim. Well, you can't claim to be Christian and pro-life if you are literally cheering on the death of children. What is so difficult about that? Candace, for all my complaints about her, stood on her business. She said, no, this is in line with what I've always said. It's just because those are brown people and brown kids being killed by white Zionists, y'all are okay with it, and I'm not. So I got to give my respect to her in that regard. Once again, regardless of where I stand with her on other issues. Same with Lauren Chin and the other conservatives who've been bold in calling out Ben Shapiro, knowing how popular he is, and also for Candace being willing to debate Ben Shapiro anywhere at any time on this issue. Like that's and for what her, and most importantly, I would say you can always judge a barometer for how much conviction somebody has on an issue when they have the most to lose, right? Because Candace got fired, she was willing to lose her job over this, and we all know like she's black. That is a component that needs to be that needs to be acknowledged. She's black. She got fired for challenging Israel. And we know for the most part, unfortunately, who runs a lot of the media space, especially on that side. It is going to be very difficult for her to get another job. Yeah, she's going to be pretty successful by herself. But like, let's be real, guys. Like this man, Ben Shapiro, went on the whole media tour and it showed like, damn, all these really popular organizations that would maybe hire her, that's not happening anymore. And knowing that about the space, she still didn't hold back about what she felt regarding this issue and what she felt about Ben Shapiro and how he's handled this situation. So like, it's good that that the infighting is happening, in my opinion. And we got to see Ben Shapiro for who he really is. And he couldn't capitulate and be like, oh, it's just those dirty leftists that are coming at me. Nah, bro, this is your own people now.
Yeah, yeah. And somebody he said was uncancelable. He said, Candace Owens, she's on the Daily Wire team now. She's uncancelable. And he went and tried to cancel her. But he did his little sort of unofficial tour smearing and defaming her. We got a clip here. This is from a party apparently in November. This footage was leaked at the time. It went viral at the time. This is Ben Shapiro calling out Candace. I want to roll this clip and then get your reaction to this. If we've got that clip, go ahead and roll that.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I can't know that. Yeah, I mean, she still works for my company. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
So he went for the jugular back right after October 7th, called it her faux sophistication. He was trying to publicly execute her character back then. And then they had this kind of supposed peace treaty, but you knew all was not well in Nashville on this issue. So what did you think about that? I mean, it's very revealing, isn't it, that he would stand up at a gathering of, influential media people and just to throw his own employee under the bus. I mean, incredible.
First of all, it's unprofessional. That was extremely unprofessional. Like, more than anything, you don't do that. Especially because at this point, her firing, because you talk about being a publisher, her firing could come off as prejudicial, right? Like, because I don't agree with your religion or the way that you are practicing and advocating for your religion because his support for Israel is based off of that, like, you're firing me, basically, is what happened. So there's that, but it's also what was horrible, boring about her stance. I don't want to see dead kids. She had the most basic position on Israel and Palestine. She hasn't even taken it as far as maybe you or I, where I don't think Israel should exist, right? She just like, oh man, like, we really shouldn't be sending our money to Israel to kill kids. The most basic, and that's abhorrent. Like, that's unacceptable. Like, you got to be a pretty shitty human being to think, even if you don't agree with her position, like, you don't want to, like, she doesn't want to send more aid to Israel or military aid to Israel, you can disagree with that. But her very specific conclusion is, I don't want to be responsible for the deaths of kids and civilians and women and children. Like, nope, doesn't matter, it's abhorrent. So it's pretty telling. You have a complete and total disregard for human life. And this is a pattern with Ben Shapiro. This isn't really new for anybody, but basically, if you aren't white, especially if you aren't Zionist, then your life is unimportant to him. It does not matter if you live or die. It does not matter your age. In his mind, the way if you look at his tweets, God, he's at some point, it feels like he's saying they deserve to die for living in Palestine. That's it. Like, Karma's a fickle bitch, and she always gets hers, and she don't like being on the side. She always becomes the main eventually. So,
no, I think it's a huge miscalculation on his part to go all in. Because when you're a big media, when you're a big media personality and you develop a brand and you have gravitas and you have huge platforms like that, but you haven't yet been tested. You haven't been tested on those core issues that are close to your heart. It happens to everybody, Niko. Whether you're in politics, whether you're in media, it happens. You're faced with
sports, everything.
And this has happened, and Ben Shapiro's, the test has come, and I'm going to say he's failed miserably, because now people are looking at him as a purveyor of media platforms, that he's not objective, that he's not a journalist, that he's basically a partisan and an extreme one, an ideologue, in fact. And I think it's hugely damaging for his own brand. I think the best thing he could do right now is to take that invitation to have that debate with Candace. That'd be the best thing for his brand. But he's not doing that. It seems like he's running away from her. Have you seen this
He
drama?
agreed to it. He did agree to it, but it's like he's obfuscating and coming up with excuses as to like, oh, well, we did it. But like, why y'all talking back and forth on Twitter, bro? You have her number. Like, set the damn debate up. But the reality of the situation is, if he debates Candace is going. It would be best for his brand if he could actually argue his points. But Ben is already an overrated debater on issues that he's actually knowledgeable about and maybe even favor him at times when he's debating college students. But Candace went through the same coaching as a lot of the Daily Wire. Candace is very well versed on this issue. Candace interviewed. She did the work, Pat. She did the work. She had Finkelstein on. She had activists on. She even had pro-Israel people on. So she's heard both sides from reasonable positions, right? So now that's fine, Ben. Let's do it. Wherever, however you want to do it. And this is Ben. This is who Ben Shapiro is. Oh, if he's not debating some 19-year-old kid from college about SJW issues, about some ridiculous extremist, quote unquote liberal issue, then he doesn't know what he's talking about. But you can't bully, 5'5" self can't bully Candace Owens, not anymore. But I would love to see the debate. And I think that she would destroy him. It's not, I think that there was a plan for the debate to go through. And then, they're always doing this this cost benefit analysis. And at a certain point, I think they realize we can't debate Candace. We'll get our asses handed to us. And we're already hemorrhaging followers. And if the conservative community gets behind her the way that they have been during the debate and after to push her points even more so, they'll go the way of TYT. They'll be around, but it won't be the same.
Yeah. Oh, that's devastating that you're framing with TYT, because actually the shoe fits quite nicely. And the same goes for Dave Rubin, who also said some very bad things about Candace Owens. And like you said, Niko, her position's pretty moderate. She's just basically taken a humanitarian position, to a compassionate Christian position. I don't see what's so controversial about it, but it's because she was in their stable, in their media stable. That's the problem. And isn't it the case, Niko, that someone as talented as her, let's be honest, for an orator and a debater and a counter puncher, she's like one of the best. She's always had that skill.
She's gotten really good. I can't lie.
And
I can't even
but they targeted her. Prager University signed her first, then the Daily Wire. So is it a case that they look at an upcoming influencer like her, someone who is going to be something, and they want to recruit and get a hold of her early, make sure she's on message on some their important issues? Do you think that's one of the how is this different than Hollywood and the mainstream media? It's the same.
It's worse. She's a DEI hire. To be frank, especially for PragerU. They weren't making sure she was on message for important issues. Well, important relatively speaking, but not the most important issues. They were making sure she was on message for Black issues. When they want to tell her, throw her out there. Hey, now she had begun to expand her analysis and her knowledge in the past year or so. But she was for example, which is it. This is even more interesting. Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro were on opposite sides of the vaccine debate. People forget that.
Oh, and yes. He didn't fire her for another one. That's another one.
Yeah.
He's with Hillary Clinton. He's with
Hillary
Clinton
Shapiro.
on
I don't know why. Hillary Shapiro. But what's more interesting, bro? So Dave Rubin, people don't know. I don't know if people remember this. Ben Shapiro refused to go to Dave Rubin's party because he did not approve of his lifestyle, because Dave Rubin is homosexual. He has a husband. Okay. Because Candace Owens has this stance on Israel, Dave Rubin ended that friendship. But this man said, I don't approve of your whole life, Dave. And Dave was like, yeah, but that's my friend. Really? That's
so
that is sad. And that's just Dave Rubin. I think we all know, Dave Rubin, one of those guys who likes to play stupid all the time. I just don't understand why people aren't understanding you, Ben. You're pretty consistent on this issue. You've been pretty clear in the way. No, that's the problem, bro. You have not. That's why we're showing you the videos. I don't know how you don't understand it, but that's what he does, man. That's his career, right? Dave Rubin.
Well, another refugee from the left, decamping in the conservative camp, making a nice little empire there. Listen, we're just calling it as we see it, Niko. I notice these things, and some other people notice these things as well. And at some point, it becomes kind of obvious what's going on, that not everybody is as advertised, basically. I think you made that point pretty well in your video.
Oh, for sure. No, that's 100%. Man, a conservative friend of mine, I'm not going to say his name, but he's funny and he's really popular. popular and he was dead serious because he knows conservatives in his own community that have done it. He's like, Niko, bro, if you pulled a Candace, you would be the most famous Black conservative in history. Because nobody can argue conservative points better than you could, even if it's from a leftist perspective. But just because you call yourself conservative, they wouldn't even know it. He's like, you should do it, bro. You would be able to take care of your family for life. I laugh. I was like, no, I couldn't do it, bro. I couldn't do it. But he was like, yeah, but like, I'm just letting you know, like a lot of these Black conservatives, like the ones that work for PragerU, they don't really believe in that stuff. They're doing it because they get a nice check.
Niko House just turned down right there a $50 million a year offer from the Daily Wire. You just chucked it out the window. Unbelievable. That is character, ladies and gentlemen. But no, listen, we're just having a conversation here. Niko House, I really appreciate you coming on. Listen, folks, Hotspot Media is putting out the best viral videos when it comes to politics. Follow them on TikTok, Instagram, and also on X, Twitter. I'm retweeting Niko's stuff. So if you follow me at 21Wire, you'll see what Niko's putting out. And this is good stuff. I mean, you're hitting all the right notes at the moment, Niko. So keep up the great work.
Hey, man, I really appreciate that, Pat. Thank you.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen, and also a big thank you to Medea Benjamin, founder of Code Pink, and of course, Freddie Ponton, independent journalist from France, in the first hour. This has been a powerful program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming along for the ride on this one. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We'll see you at the same time, same place tomorrow, and we're going to have a couple of surprise bookings tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a very informative and powerful and entertaining program. I hope to see you guys there. Take care of y'all.